Hello everyone, and welcome to the most musical dev game podcast in the world, House of Games. Today, as always, I'm joined by my host, Hello! And if that's not all, we got an ace in the sleeve, because it's full house tonight with an indie dev from the beautiful South, Mr. Dennis Magnusson. So, my friends, let's put all the cards on the table and start this episode of House of Games.
Welcome everyone to this episode of House of Games. As usual, we have a guest with us, a very special guest. This time it's Dennis. So right off the bat, I will let you introduce yourself and we'll take it from there. So go right ahead.
My name is Dennis Magnusson and I do games for a hobby, but I want to get out of that hobby and make it a full-time job instead. I have 3 kids, so I work on the game when they are at sleep, mainly.
Oh, nice.
Very nice. And the way I found you actually was through a discussion on Reddit. So far, if I'm not mistaken, is it one game that you have released?
I have been making games since I was 8 years old, but this is the first game that I actually made to a point where I could put it on Steam and get revenue for it.
Cool.
Damn. That's a long time, actually. Really cool. So how did you start? When you were 8 years old, I'm imagining that maybe Unity wasn't around then, or could you tell us like the journey from learning it from the beginning and then going from there?
So I actually started with Game Maker when it was in beta. My dad got it on like a CD or something like that because he subscribed to a lot of weird magazines and he got like pirated CDs and discs and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I actually started my first game journey, so to say.
And then you were 8 and you made games in that for how long? Or was it just like a continuous...
Yeah, the first game that I made was called Kushit. It was a platformer where you were like, it was like abstract art because I can't draw.
So how do you spell that, by the way?
K-O-S-H-I-T.
Okay, right, yeah, like I imagine, yeah.
Yeah. So each level was the same level, but they have different like hidden blocks and stuff like that. So you have to solve each level in a different way. And it was like just 4 levels, but yeah.
Cool.
You said abstract art. Did you make the art yourself?
Yeah. And I still can't make art.
What about the one that is published on Steam today? Is that you bought the assets or did you make that art yourself?
It's mixed between Humble Bundle assets and Unity asset stores and AI.
Oh, cool. So AI, that means you finished this game quite recently then, or? Yeah, it's released 2023, so...
So it's in early access 2023, but I started it on the Game Jam for Game Maker Toolkit 2022. So the core concept was made under the 48 hours.
Ah.
I got so much positive feedback from the community, so I continue to develop it.
Cool.
And how long have you worked on it until you released it for early access?
So the early access release was, I can't really remember exactly the date. I'm not good at dates in general, so it should...
Makes 2 of us, I guess.
Yeah, so a little bit more than a half year.
Are you guys talking about dates with girls or dates in terms of calendar?
Calendar.
But I was gonna ask, well, you have 3 kids, so I guess you're pretty good with the one lady at least.
Yeah.
You mentioned that some of your first games were like a puzzle game, and now this one that is on Steam is like we just talked about it a little bit before we started recording, some sort of card game. Do you like that kind of mechanics where it's like a lot of numbers and structure in those, like, I can't quite put it into words, but you know, it's
Spreadsheet guy.
yeah.
I'm not really that type of guy that use spreadsheets to min-max. I like to play a lot of like hack and slash, last epoch and stuff like that. And what I like to do is try different builds. This game is a lot inspired from Slay the Spire and PokerQuest. And it's fun to try out new things when I play games. Or in general, I mean.
Since you have 3 kids, I'm quite curious. Like, how do you balance that, like playing games and making your own games? Like, how do you have time for both, or do you sort of prioritize making games at this point instead of playing them?
I would say it's a mix, because I think my brain works in a way that I can get bored on both the game I'm making and the game I'm playing. So when I get bored of the game I'm playing, I switch over to making the game and versus switching back and forth.
Okay, cool.
Very interesting. And you made sort of the first prototype in 48 hours, and after that, was it about like say a month, or how long did you say it took to make?
So for the early access on Steam, it was like maybe 7 or 8 months before I put it on early access. I didn't wait for wishlist that long because I had it on itch, and I always kept it close to be finished, so I could just leave it whenever I wanted. But I think I'm at a point now that I need to make it even bigger and more, because I have like a small community that like to play the game, so I want to like make them happy.
And for those who don't know, could you just give us sort of a elevator pitch of what the game is and what you do in it?
The game is a roguelike. If you die, you have to start over. You have a few characters to pick, but they are mainly like a starting point. I have added so they are more variety to them, but that's coming in the next patch. So you collect items that are your abilities, and you can equip and unequip them. So you can like switch around, but you have slots. You can get more slots by specific blessings, and blessings is like relics in Slay the Spire, where they are passive bonuses that trigger in different scenarios. You also collect dices, so you can get D4 dices, but you can also upgrade them up to D12 dices, and on bosses you get special bonuses like extra slots and also a D20 dice and stuff like that. So the dices are like your stamina, where you pay for using the abilities.
Cool. Do you play like Magic in real life, like with dice and stuff?
Yeah.
It's sort of, yeah, cool. Yeah, it's sort of somewhat similar with the stamina and with the dices and all that stuff. That's cool.
I play a lot of board games with my wife.
Very, very nice. And for me, who is sort of a layman when it comes to role playing and dice and so on, I'm used to the old, 6 sides version. So getting a dice with more sides, then I guess is you want that because there's a chance of higher potential numbers for, you can get higher attack points or whatever it might be.
Yeah, but I also have special dices. I have the 50-50 dice, so it's 50-50 to get the lowest or maximum value of the dice. So it's like a trade-off. And that is good for, like, I have attacks that use pair dice, so you need to use like 2 dices of the same values. And it's easier to get the same value if it's only 50-50 on the dice, basically.
Cool, very cool. And since it's in early access, do you have a plan for the future or a roadmap or what you want to do with the game where it's at some point it's a full release and that would mean X, Y, and Z for the content, for example?
So I have a guy from New Zealand that is helping me with the UI, because I really don't want to use the Humble Bundle and AI stuff. I want to move away from as much as possible to have my own style and stuff like that. So he's working on that. He has a full-time job as a UI designer, and he got the go-ahead to help me from his work.
Cool.
Yeah, so he's really nice and really good.
Have you seen his UI? Is it in the game? Anything he has done, is that in the game at the moment, or are you still waiting for the first sort of presentation from him, how it's gonna look like?
So he has shown me a draft of how it will look and stuff like that, and what he want to improve. So he made a document, but he haven't had anything finished yet because there are some issue with the size of text and stuff like that.
Okay. How does it work with early access? I'm thinking to do it myself, so I'm just kind of curious from that perspective. Like how does that work? Like you release it for free? Is that early access, or what exactly does it mean?
It depends on how you want to do it. My plan is to have a low price during early access and raise the price for the game as it goes. But not everyone does that. They have like full price at the get-go and more using it as a way to gain an audience before the release. Because when you do the release, you get a boost from Steam. You do get that boost when you go into early access as well, but you need to have like 10,000 wish lists and stuff like that, and I didn't want to wait on that.
Ah, okay. I see. Yeah, I see here on your Steam page that I can buy it for €3. So that's a cheap way to get into it. So that means that if I bought in now, I would keep playing it, even the full version, or does it mean I pay again when the full game is out?
No, it's one-time payment only.
Cool. No, that's a good idea and approach, I think.
Yeah, I thought so too, but I also have got feedback that the price is too low because I had it on sale the first week or so as a like early access release sale, and everyone was waiting for the sale to be over so they could buy it at full price because they thought the price was too low.
Ah.
And I also read on like blogs and stuff like that having a too low of a price could hurt you because they will think that the game is not up to par to what they want the game to be.
Interesting. I've never really heard people waiting for a sale to be over so that they can pay more for a product. So that's cool that you have such loyal fans, I guess.
Yeah.
Cool. And how has the experience of releasing a game for the first time been then? As you said earlier, this is your first Steam release, so I guess that must be a lot to learn and a lot of new stuff to sort of adapt to.
Yeah, I get a really high dopamine kick from it, and it's also like getting that dopamine kick every time I check the analytics to see how much I'm selling and stuff like that, and it's just triggered me to work in the game even more.
Great. You said you had made a lot of games in the past that, more like a hobby thing, and you didn't publish. How many would you say that is? Do you have any?
I think it's around 200 games that I haven't showed.
Holy shit.
Oh, wow.
Like 10% of them I show to friends and stuff like that we try out together, and then I just drop it and I get a new idea that I want to make and do that one instead.
Yeah, I love that. We mentioned that often on this show, that one of the most difficult thing being like indie dev and creative is that you just leave every project and start a new one all the time, and that if you have about 200 games in the backlog, that really, yeah, that's exactly what we've been talking about so often here, that it's new ideas, and then you leave everything behind and just keep on working on something new and nothing gets done. So it's cool that you got this one out finally.
Yeah, but I also reuse a lot of code from other projects that I know that I have done that could be like utilities and stuff like that. So I have a fairly big utility script file that I use in most of the games I make.
Cool. And what kind of utilities do you use then when developing?
It can be like shuffle a list or picking random based on weight and stuff like that.
I read in the comments someone wrote like, yeah, it was fun until I reached the last map. I wonder, is the original game gonna be bigger than this one, or what is the difference between early access and the original, like the full game? Like, is this the full game and then it's just gonna be polished in terms of bugs and graphics, or will it actually expand as well?
I don't know, because I shoot from the hip most of the time. I don't really know when I should stop developing it, But at some point, I guess I will just be okay with the state of it and just do a full release.
Yeah. I'm wondering, what tools have you used to build this? Is this Unity or some other game engine, or is Game Maker perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah, so it's made in Unity, and the AI art is with Stable Diffusion, so I run it on my own computer.
Right. Very cool. And how long have you been using Unity for?
Oh, I was at a party with a friend a long time ago, and he mentioned that, have you seen this game engine? And I was like, no. And then he like sent me a message for it, and when I got home, I looked it up. I could have been like 16 years old, 17 years old, or something like that at the time. I'm 32 now, so yeah.
Okay. You mentioned before that you wanted to make games full time. What kind of games is that? Like, what kind of games do you want to make? If this sells well enough, so you can tell your boss to fuck off and start making games on your on full time. Like, what kind of game would you make then?
So I have a few design documents or design guides of 3 different types of game that I want to make next, and I'm not sure which one. So, and they are different, like scale in cost, how much and time it will take to make them. So the first one is a card game where all the cards is tradable through Steam Marketplace, and that's how I will make the money, is like from the 1% cut between the trade of the players. And it's like you have buildings instead of life, so when the buildings are destroyed, the game is over, basically. And a second one is a hide and seek type of game. It's a platformer, like 3D platformer, like Mario Odyssey. There is like a modded version of it where they play hide and seek, and I thought that would be a cool to do a standalone game of, that you can also play on the PC and Switch and stuff like that. And the third one, that is the biggest scope of them all, is like a hack and slash game, Extraction. So you are in like a dungeon against like 10 other people, and it's a PvP game, and you have to like collect loot, but if you die, you lose everything you have on you.
Ah, okay.
And then you have to go to the portal to get extracted with the loot you have collected without dying. And there are less portals than there are players, so you have to really get there first.
Cool.
Very cool. And your plan then, if you're thinking hypothetically, just thinking out loud, what would be the dream scenario? Would it be to just keep releasing indie games and then have one of them be successful so that you can do it full time, or would it be getting a publisher or getting a job at an established studio, or what would be your dream scenario, so to speak?
I would like to have my own studio and grow it and become bigger and bigger. And I would like to have like the freedom to have my employees to do like a little bit of whatever they want, on like have a Wednesday off where they could do whatever they want, even take the full day off if they wanted, and still get paid for it, because I think that will thrive the creativity of the project in itself in the long run. So I want to have a big studio eventually. That's the dream.
Yeah. Actually, the studio Turborilla from Umeå is actually trying out something similar. At the time of recording, at least, they're still trying it out to have Fridays off with pay, though. So the idea being that the extra time off would make you more well rested and then more creative, perhaps, and in turn the company will be more profitable, is what they say. So I will link a episode of the Research Institute of Sweden's episode. They have a podcast, their episode about that, where they interview the CEO of that company, who talks about why they do it and so on, and if it works or not, and so on. So interesting.
We had them on this show too, right? And I can imagine they're quite pro that approach.
Yeah, or actually, I thought the episode was gonna be sort of a fluff piece that was just, oh, it's so great, working less is the best or something. But I think he's really like very honest about his opinions on it. So he says that he comes from the culture of crunch, so he's used to working like 16 hours a day and just doing as much as possible and getting stuff done is the most important thing. But he also says that he thinks this can be an interesting idea, while at the same time he says something like, well, we'll see if this works. It would be great if it does, but in the end, if we don't make as much money, we're not gonna continue with it. That's just that. Which is, I think it's a really interesting episode, so I will absolutely recommend it to anyone.
Yeah, I wanna hear that. I'm sort of the opposite to that. I'm always imagining if I had a company, I would have like rules that you can't bring your phones because it's distraction. I would pay staff more money if they left their phone at home. Just work hard. But because my thing is that like living in Japan and working is non-stop. I mean, I haven't had holiday my entire life. I'm 35 now. I never had a holiday ever because I lived here my entire adult life. And I just don't see how more time off makes things better, because in Sweden I think you guys are barely working. I mean, 8 hours, that's it. And like to me that is having time off. So I don't know. I feel like if a whole country or a society or a culture or whatever just work less, that's gonna be the new standard. And then you want to work less, and that's the new standard, and it less and less and less. Imagine if you're like, I don't know, Japanese, and well, for example, my Japanese friend who did move to Sweden and worked for DICE, he was bored out of his mind because he only worked 8 hours a day. Now he lives in France. I don't know if it's much better but he was used to work all the time. But then moved to Sweden, and all of a sudden he's like, oh my God, I need a hobby because I don't work here, but I get paid. So I don't know. I wonder if it's, but what I worry about the Turbo Gorilla thing is that if you spoil the staff to that point where it might be difficult to take it back. That's my thing with always when I think about Sweden. I rant about this all the time, but I think it's too much holiday in Sweden. It's red days all the time. You never get shit done because it's impossible.
Have you heard how Steam do their games?
No?
When you start as a new employee, the first thing that you get told is that Gaben is not your boss. You don't have any boss, it's a flat structure. You have your own hours, you come as go as you will, and you get a manual how to book the massage room.
Huh.
And then
oh my God.
Your first task is to go around the office and find something fun to do.
Huh.
Oh my God. I say Valve is sort of a, like,
Yeah.
What they do sort of don't count because they have sort of an infinite money printing machine that nobody else has. And they're like, I mean, I get it. It's nice, and sure, it would probably be a lot of fun to work there, but it feels like such a, like a, like you say, Rune, it's like they sort of don't work. I don't know, because they also have this like policy that you're not part of a project, so nobody tells you what to do, and you have sort of these wheels on your desk, so you can just roll it over to wherever you want to work. Like if you want to work on the Half-Life team, just go roll over there, and if you want to work on Portal, go roll over there.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if they were like, quotes, a real company that had to make money and didn't have a infinite money printing machine, then they would really suck at it, because it takes like years and years and years, and they scrap products over and over again before they make anything real. I mean, when they do, it's really amazing, but still though, it's...
But maybe that work ethics is why we don't have Half-Life 3 and Portal 3, because they just fucking roll around in a building.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yes, I mean, at some point, I think you need leadership. You need somebody to say, we're making Half-Life 3, or we're making whatever, and then, like, this is, like, what you have to do, and then we'll work together as a team to achieve that. Not as, like, anarchy, I guess.
I think, well, it isn't like all the layoffs in like Facebook and what else? Twitter, some other social media company,
Yeah, a lot of tech companies.
and these services are working fine. So it's like, it seems like it was just, what did people do? I know that Twitter got a lot of backlash because they fired too many people. But for example, Facebook, like so many layoffs, and I don't know if it's changed anything. I don't use social media, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, so maybe it's like, yeah, some infinite money, and then it just turns into this sort of feel good. Yeah, like too much of that. I mean, I can tell straight away, like, if there's anyone listening to this and want to work for me, you don't want to work for me because I will be the worst ever. my work ethics are just absolutely destroyed. Or I love them, but you know, I would need to go some sort of chill course first before I could be in charge of anyone.
Well, something you said earlier is that you said, well, if you do 4 hours or 4 days a week to work, and then that's going to be standard, and then somebody wanna just lower that. And that's also something that I agree with, that who says that 4 or 5 days is sort of like, this is the universal amount you should work. I mean, it feels like, as you say, if 4 days is gonna be the standard, then somebody is going to say like, well, 3 days is like the most you should handle, and then somebody is just gonna say, well, 1 day is, you know.
Because I mean, we used to work 7 days a week, even in Sweden.
Yeah, exactly. And but I think like having a weekend, that's fine. But I also, maybe this comes into sort of a bigger discussions about like law and stuff, but I think also I love to work as well. So besides my day job, I also work 2-3 hours at least every day with this podcast and some other stuff. So I'm also maybe sort of a workaholic, I guess. But I would be really interested to hear your take on this, Dennis, since this sort of started this conversation. So you would want to have this sort of 1 day off. So could you explain like your take on it and why that would be a good thing rather than not having that?
Yeah, so my idea is that they could have like game jams and stuff like that, and that could later on become a new game that we eventually develop. Or if they have a hobby project that they want to lift up, they could work on that during that time, and eventually we can help them publish it and stuff like that. So it's like a tight relationship with the developers.
Yeah, I guess that could be a quite neat solution, because most of the time when you work for another game company, you're not allowed to work on your own project on the side, but here you can sort of help publishing in them, which means that even though you allow them to work on their own stuff, there's still like, you can make some profits on it in the back end, but at the same time you can also allow them to sort of achieve their own goals and dreams. So yeah, that's a...
I thought actually something similar, if I could dream a little bit about having a big game company and stuff. So I think I also would like people to be able to have side projects. But the only caveat would be that instead of saying something like many companies do, that you can't have side projects, I would say in the employee contract, I would say something like, all right, you get to do as many side projects as you want. However, if you make a game, we get like the first offer to publish it. And if we reject it, you can just publish it with somebody else or just self-publish it or whatever. But if you do a game, we get the option to publish it, so we can help you make games and stuff. And yeah, something like that.
But would that be that they work on it during work hours? Or like, I'm not quite sure why a game company wouldn't allow someone to work on games on the spare time. Like, what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, I guess it's people are afraid of competition or something. Like they would steal ideas that you're making in your, or it's some complication with copyright. If you do it on like company hours, then technically who has the copyright? And if you
Yeah, that part I get.
Yeah. So I guess then it would go both ways. So if you do your own game on company hours, does the company own that game, or the vice versa? If you do the company game on your spare time, do you own a piece of that? Or, so I think they just want to separate it completely.
Interesting.
I was about to say something, but I don't remember what. What were we talking about? All right, something about publishing and... Oh man, I'm totally lost out there.
It reminds me of, have you seen Silicon Valley, the show?
Yeah.
A little bit.
Yeah, so he made like encryption software called Pied Piper. And because he was working on the company computer, they thought that they owned it and stuff like that.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. Here is I remember. Thank you so much, Dennis. So, yeah, the question was, would I allow people to do it on company hours or not? And my answer is like this. I wouldn't have like official working hours. I like sort of the idea of responsibility rather than having like rules and guidelines. I would rather want my employees to be completely responsible. Like, your responsibility is I don't know what schedule we would have, but say that, oh, by this week or by this time we need to have this feature fixed, or we need to release the game. That's the responsibility. And how you manage that time, up to you. Do you want to take like all days off, or do you want to work all day, all night? Whatever, it's up to you. As long as it gets done, that's what matters. And if you want to do, your own game or this game or whatever, I don't care. Get the assignment that you're paid for done, and that is the only thing that really, really matters.
That's actually how I work now, because I'm a consultant for a Danish company, and I work whenever I want, as long as I get to the meetings also, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly how I would want to have it. Because in reality, I think it doesn't really matter if you say that you work at a company and they say, well, your work hours are from 8 to 5. And in reality, it doesn't really matter that you work exactly from 8 to 5. What really matters and what you're paying them to do is to finish the thing. And for some people, if they want other hours, for example, say that they work really early mornings, or they work late nights, or they like to work a little bit on the weekends, or, they have, I don't know, some hour in the middle of a Thursday that, oh shit, I have to take my son to the hospital because he fell and knocked his teeth out or something. Whatever, take that time. As long as it gets finished on time. That's really, and I really, maybe I would be a bad employee to you, Rune, but I really don't like rules, and, I want like nobody to keep tabs on what I'm doing or whatever. As long as I get it done and we're both happy, then that should be it, I think.
Well, listening to your hipsters talking about not working, I could agree a little bit, like some sort of flex. But as someone who's been freelancing and working from home forever, like, I just don't think it's good for people's health to be home. And I think humans need structure. I think we are as simple as that. We actually need structure. So I allow some flex then. But fucking hell, come into work. We're a team.
But yeah, I agree though. I would absolutely agree that meeting people in real life is really, really nice. But I would say a phrase that I picked up somewhere is that to do stuff out of conviction and not by habit is much better. So for me, for example, I worked from home since I started my current job. I think it was 2021, I think, something like that. And then I've been working from home all the way since then. And then I moved to Stockholm, which means I don't even have an office to go to. But what I found is, like, before the pandemic started, I thought all the time, like, I wish I could just work from home all the time. That would be the best. And now that I've got the chance to, I really do love the flexibility. But whenever I am in Umeå, I always take the opportunity to go to the office like every day and try to be there as much as I can. Just because I really love the feeling of being with people and working with people and stuff. And I think that's a lot better, that you have people who want to be there rather than forcing people to be there. So it's more like by your own conviction rather than by force, so the energy will be better and more productive, perhaps. I don't know.
Well, I will allow some flex and maybe
He muttered.
we have a fika on Friday and finish 50 minutes early. How about that?
Somebody should create like a workplace simulator game or something, and we could just do multiplayer and, you know, have some battle in that.
But if I just did what I just said here in Japan, that would be like, wow, have you heard? Working for Rune is like, wow, it's amazing. Because here it's just insane how much they work. So yeah, everything is relative.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now that was fun though, speculating in our future companies.
Yeah, exactly.
The dream.
Yeah.
What do you call your studio, Dennis, by the way?
Mistbite.
Mistbite, cool. So where does that come from?
When I was at university, I had bad grades. I didn't come into game programs. I was web development. And I came in as a reserve, but I just flew through because I knew everything already. But we had like projects cross programs. So every project I made was a game, even if it was like a web game and stuff like that. But we had like a group project that we were going to do across programs because they had like graphical designers and they had game design and stuff like that. So we were like a group of 5 to 6 people, and we just made up that name from nowhere, basically, and we made logo and stuff like that. And after I asked if I could keep it, and they said yeah.
Cool. So are the other people at all involved in your studio, or is it just you?
It's just me. They work at the different game companies now. Not everyone does. A few of them does. And yeah.
Cool, very cool. But I gotta say that the game looks very interesting. Dice Hero, that is. Is the art also all like, maybe not asset flips, but like assets and AI and stuff?
So icons are from Humble Bundle and the UI is from Asset Store. But like the avatars on the characters you play are AI, and a few of the monster avatars are AI, and the rest is Humble Bundle, so it's a mix. But if you look at the background and all the, let's see, like I have random events that happens, and you have a dialog box, and the art in those dialog box are AI. So there is a few places. It's a mix. So I don't really have like a red line for the style, really.
I do think it's quite amazing. Like, so I'm on the other side. I'm more like the art guy, and I'm struggling with coding. But also thanks to ChatGPT, my coding skills are, assisted by AI. And for you, it's the art part is being assisted by AI. It's neat.
I actually use ChatGPT 4 quite a lot, and the Copilot from GitHub.
Okay. What about the music in the game?
So that's Humble Bundle also, but I have a friend. He's a friend of a friend of a friend, basically.
Ah.
And he was making music for artists from Melody Festival and stuff like that. And he wanted to try to make game music, so he doing music for me for free.
Cool. I'm actually going to a meeting tomorrow. I also have a friend who's from your parts of Sweden, working with a huge Japanese music company. Music for a lot of famous anime. I'm going there tomorrow for a meeting to make a deal. I have to pay because it's via the company, but it will be, in terms of how professional they are, it's going to be dirt cheap. So it's going to be exciting.
Cool. We talked a little bit about, was it an artist or a designer that you worked with from New Zealand? So is that also a pro bono thing, or is there are you paying him, or how does that work?
So the guy that makes the music, I said to him that I won't accept it free because we're gonna put it as soundtracks on Steam page, and everything we get from there will he get, because I think that's fair game. I don't like free work. And the guy from New Zealand, he also wanted to do it free because I found him on Reddit because he replied to someone else's post saying that he's looking for stuff to improve his skills. And then I showed him my game and asked if I'm a lost cause, and he said no. But I will pay him when he's done, because I think that's fair.
Very cool. And when can we expect this new UI for those who have bought the game?
So he asked for a time frame when I wanted it done because he worked better under pressure, he said. I don't like to estimate and stuff like that. So I just said like 1 to 2 months. But I also said no hurry because it's done when it's done. Can't work faster than what you can work, basically. So
Yeah, exactly. And your part then, so would you say that programming is your favorite part of making games, or would you say that there's like different disciplines that you do like, or what's your take on that?
I think the game design in itself is the most part. When you come up with like new items and new monsters to fight. Eventually hit a wall on that too, and then I just put a huge list on ChatGTP and I get ideas from that I can spin off from. So I think that is the most fun, and then try to balance that to fit with the game itself.
How do you balance a game like this? Like with my game, I'm thinking about doing some sort of early access because I think I need help balancing the game. So imagine like a Harvest Moon / Animal Crossing type of game. So I just imagine that I would need people to play it in order to understand if things are too cheap in the game or if you make too much money of onions when you harvest or whatever. So how do you balance that? Can AI help with that, or do you just play it yourself until it's balanced?
There is a few ways to balance. I don't think ChatGTP can help you, but there is like a software that you can like do a diagram and it's like looping, so you can check the whole game loop to see where there are holes. I can link you, see if I can find it.
Yes, that sounds really cool.
I forgot the name of it and I have so many bookmarks.
Don't worry, we'll add it to the description if we don't find it right away.
Yeah, but what I do, because I think my game is a little bit more complex and I don't want to like remake the game in that homepage. So what I do is I just shoot from the hip, I push it, and then I watch the reaction from my community. Like I had a bow in the game and it was really OP because you can just shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot. And so what I did was whenever you reload the bow, you get a weakness, and that's like solved the problem with the bow basically. But as you also saw in my Steam review, they said that the last world was too repetitive and hard because there was like I added a blessing on the monster that you fight that every damage you did was reduced to 1, and they didn't like that at all. So I changed it to 10% of the damage instead, basically.
How much do you think? 'Cause it's interesting you said that because I was thinking about it as well if I do this early access thing. Like, you want to make sure that the people who help you balance the game are actually into it and not just this should be easier because they want to get through it. Can you tell when you get criticized by a player who doesn't really get it versus someone who gets it? I don't know, like, can you tell the difference there?
Yeah, you sort of can, and also you have to understand why they are saying what they are saying, because they might think the game work in a different way that you have designed it. So if they say this is too hard, make it easier, they might, like if they say this monster is hard, it might just be that they are missing a set of items to defeat it or something like that counter it easily. But also, like, why do you need to have those specific items for that one? So you might want to nerf it so it fit a broader scope of equipment that it can be fought against. So you have to understand why they are saying it.
Yeah, that was something I thought about myself. Like, what if I get a bunch of people who don't really get the game? Like, they just think, yeah, you should set some seed and then you give one gift to an NPC and your best friends, and then the NPC tell you everything, and you just unlock everything at once. But like the charm, in my opinion, with Stardew Valley, Harvest Moon, Animal Crossing is that sort of everyday grind, like every day you grind on something in the game, like if you're improving relationship with someone or if you saving up money to fix a bridge somewhere and so on. So yeah, I was thinking about that myself. So yeah, it seems like you can at least tell in your case when people seem to be out of touch completely with the game you're trying to make, and when people have good feedback.
But I mean, I also know that if they manage to get to the last world, I know they have tried really hard because the game is fairly hard to play in general.
And another thing to consider, I guess, is so you have players who really like this type of game and are really good at it, and then you have players who are not very good at it or doesn't understand how it works. So which one do you optimize for? Is it to you important to get people to understand it easily, or is it just interesting to optimize it for players who already like the way it is now?
We can take an example because in the next patch I'm releasing, I have added like a unique blessing on all the characters that they didn't have before, and that will make the game easier. But I also have like you can add the difficulty with corruptions, making the monsters or making it harder for yourself. So I'm also adding a leaderboard for that now at the same time. So at the same time I make the game easier, but I also make it sort of harder to strive to be the best player.
Now that's smart. You're implementing a leaderboard as well, so the hardcore gamers who really enjoy the game, they won't get upset that the game got easier. Instead, they can sort of try to get on that leaderboard. Because I like hard games and just don't like when there's easy modes in them, because I'm also not very disciplined in games. I just go to the easy mode if I get stuck. But then Dark Souls type of game, they don't have an easy mode, so then it's just there's something about it, so you get punished until you get good, and I like that.
Something I used to say also, I don't think I was the first one to say it, but it's easy to make a hard game, but it's hard to make a hard game fun.
True. Yeah, remember that, a quote from Dennis Magnusson, for sure.
I don't think I was the first one to say that. Also, I wanted to add, I do have a lot of analytics, so I can see what items players prefer, and I can see what blessings they prefer, how far they get before they die, and stuff like that. So I can see like, okay, a lot of people dies on this monster. Do I need to nerf it? And stuff like that. So I try to balance that all the elite monsters have like equivalent kill rating, and all the normal have equivalent kill rating. But I also try to make the first monsters easier and grade them up.
Wow. How do you implement that in a game? Because that was also a thing I was...
Yeah, I was just about to ask the exact same thing.
I was thinking myself to balance my game if I do early access, or that's the intention, like sort of have a pop-up thing. Let's say you play through 1 month and then a pop-up thing comes like, please take a screenshot and add it or post it in the Steam community so I can look at where you're at. But I assume that your system is like, I mean, you seem to be a hardcore programmer, so you know magic. But please tell us how you make it work.
You can make it the multiple ways, because you could host your own server and just have a database that runs and collect all the data you send to it. But to be fair, Unity has a great analytics tool that you can just integrate into it and hook it up. So you like set up the events on the analytics tools, and then you just send the events to it. And then you can do queries to the database to get like more precise data that you want to see.
Can you put that in more layman terms, like the events? Like, can you explain it to a programming noob like myself?
Like I'm 5.
Yeah, like I'm 5. So explain like what you do and what is that, and how does that turn into data?
So basically I do, you know how the browser work, that when you get information from the server, it's visual basically, but you can also send it information, like when you post
submit an email address, for example.
Email is a bad example because you use a different protocol, but
No, I meant like sign up for this newsletter and you fill in your
yeah, exactly. So it's like a post request, so it's using like something called curl, and you basically post to a server information that you want to store, and then on that server you can fetch the information and analyze it.
So in order to get the data, you need to be online while you play the game? Is that it? Do they post the information themselves, or does it happen automatically, like between each match in the game?
Yeah, so you need an internet connection, because otherwise you can't post the information. But if they don't have internet connection, I don't get the information, basically. So I programmed a class called Analytics Manager, and I just call a function in that one to say, okay, store this information now. So example, when the death trigger happens, I can just call that function and send the death information with it.
Okay, so from the, let's say, the player script, you have is dead, like a boolean, is dead equals true, and when that boolean is ticked, in that bracket is a piece of code that sends a signal to the data.
I use a dictionary, so I have like a string and a string. So the string is the key, so it's like the value, and it can be the like character, and then it's like a traveler. And then I know, okay, they used the traveler, they had, and then I have items, and then I send all the items in that string, and then so I know, okay, so this character with these items and stuff like that, and then I store it in a database.
I worked on a debug thing today, so I can play the game and sort of like just open a debug menu and click on buttons like is married, for example, and then I'm married, and the dialogue system, it changes depending on your status and so on. So I imagine that I could use maybe that as a ground to make some sort of analytic thing, but I guess I would need to have thought about that early on, or is it difficult to implement something like that towards the end of the development?
You can add it at the end. So you just, because I split it up a lot, so you just need to make the like analytic manager or whatever you want to call it, and then where you do that trigger in the code, let's say if they marry a character or something like that, or get in love with a character, you can like send the love information with character they got in love with, and then you can see, okay, they prefer to have a relationship with this character.
Cool. Very interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna look into that. It sounds way too complicated for me, but I will give it a go.
Ask ChatGPT, he knows everything.
Oh yeah, that bastard. Yeah, I was screaming at her yesterday because she was being such a fucking idiot, and I was like, oh god damn it, if robots really come to life and go after human beings, she's gonna come after me, man. The things I said to her, or him, I sort of apologized afterwards. It's so fucking weird. And this is not the first time I go mental on ChatGPT. Like, how could you not understand it? And then I asked it, like, tell me what part of my question you didn't understand. And she's like, it went like, well, I'm a fucking AI. I don't get it.
Did you use Git before?
Yeah. Or, yeah, I mean, I guess it's the latest one.
Have you paid for it, or is it the free version?
No, the free ones. I imagine that I get sent a stupid AI often.
Okay, 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah, the 4 version is like 100 times better. It's insanely much better. And there's also have plugins, so you can ask it to search the internet and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm actually thinking of getting that, because it seems like I use it all the time myself also, so it would be a really nice to have even a better version of it.
Yeah, I see here now it's $20 a month. That could be worth it during the development.
Well, gentlemen, I think we're sort of going towards an hour now of recording, so I think we need to wrap it up. But before that, Rune, did you have any additional questions before we end the episode?
No, but I did. I love how we started the sort of like an interview, and then we just start fantasizing about our companies, and then I went back to an interview. That was good fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you for that, lads.
Yeah, and Dennis, would you like to plug anything or promote anything or send our listeners anywhere before we end the episode?
I have a Discord channel for my game. I listen to every message and I read everything. I have even forums on the Discord where you can put suggestions for items, placing monsters, stuff like that, to create your own stuff into the game. And I will mostly add them, and if they're not balanced, I will balance them before I add them. I have added like 10 different items from the community already, so...
Cool.
Cool. Very cool. And also, don't forget to buy Dice Hero the Unoriginal Story on Steam. And I think that concludes the episode then. Thank you so much, Dennis, for taking the time to join us. Thank you, Rune, as always, for being my co-host. Thank you for listening, and see you next week. Bye-bye!
Thanks for having me.
Bye.